"Mommy, Daddy, come quick. Grandma is not moving." The scream came like a bullet. Sharp, urgent, final. Jerry dropped his coffee mug. It hit the floor and exploded into white shards. He didn't even look down. Jessica was already running. Past him, through the hallway. Her breath caught in her chest before she could even form a thought. The bedroom door slammed open. The twins, Mimi and Mara, were already on the floor beside the bed, shaking her, pulling her wrapper. Their cries had no rhythm, just panic. "Grandma, wake up, please," Mimi begged, her voice raw and high. Her small hands slapped the mattress softly, as if afraid to hurt but desperate to wake. Mirabelle pressed her ear to the old woman's chest. Her hands trembled. Her voice cracked. "She's cold." Jessica reached the bed. One touch. That's all it took. One touch of Madame Hannah's arm, and her knees gave way. It was stiff, cold, still. "No, no, no," she whispered, her voice cracking as the tears came. Jerry rushed in behind her. "Jessica, what?" Then he saw, and just like that, every muscle in his body went limp. His mother, Madame Hannah, the woman who raised him in silence and prayer, in distance and dignity. Her face was calm, too calm, like a statue, her hands folded neatly over her stomach, her mouth gently closed. It looked like sleep, but it wasn't. Jessica covered her mouth and screamed. Jerry staggered backward and hit the wall. He pressed his back to it, as if needing something to hold him up. His breath came in sharp, shallow bursts. No, no, this wasn't how it was supposed to happen. He rushed to the bed and grabbed her hand. Cold, lifeless, still. "Mama, please don't do this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please." He shook her hand gently, as if enough love could pull her back. His tears fell fast. He didn't even try to wipe them. The twins were crying harder now. Their little voices sliced through the room like glass. "Mommy, tell her to wake up." She promised. She said she'd be at our wedding. She said she would braid our hair. She said she'd walk us down the aisle. Jessica dropped to her knees and pulled them into her arms. Her tears soaked their hair. She couldn't speak. She could barely breathe. Jerry bent over the bed, pressing his forehead to his mother's hand, and sobbed. It wasn't the cry of a man. It was the cry of a child who had just been orphaned again. The sound of footsteps. More voices. Amara and Johnson burst into the room. One look was all it took. Amara collapsed to the ground. "No, no, my mother. Mama Hannah, please." She gripped the wrapper at her waist and wailed. Loud, broken. Johnson turned away, his shoulders tense. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then the twins ran to him, arms wrapping around his legs. "Grandpa, please help Grandma. She's not moving." And the last wall in Johnson crumbled. He bent down, pulled them close, and whispered, "She's gone, my darlings. Mama has gone to rest." Jessica turned to him, eyes wide. But she laughed last night. She prayed. She said she'd cook okra soup today. She said she'd be here. Jerry's voice was hoarse. Some people don't need sickness. They don't need pain. Sometimes their journey just ends. The silence that followed was unbearable. Word spread fast. The town knew before noon. Kindness Restaurant, open every day since its founding, shut its doors. For the first time, everything stopped. Jerry planned the burial himself. Not because he wanted to, but because he had to. No one else could do it right. Not for her. Not for the woman who saved his life by simply believing he still had one. No gold-plated caskets. No hired singers. Just softness, beauty, dignity. Her white coffin rested under a quiet canopy of flowers. No stage. Just ground. People gathered. Neighbors. Friends. Strangers who had eaten at kindness and felt her warmth without ever hearing her name. Jessica never left Jerry's side. Her eyes were red. Her hand gripped his arm so tight it hurt. The twins clung to her gown and wept so loudly that grown men turned their faces away. She promised. They cried. She said she'd braid our hair. She said she'd walk us down the aisle. Every word was a knife. Johnson stood to speak. His hand shook. His voice trembled. She died peacefully. She slept and didn't wake. But she left joy behind. She left love. She left this family. And when they lowered the coffin into the ground, Jerry broke again. Completely. His cry was deep and slow, and it pulled every heart with it. Jessica knelt beside him and wrapped her arms around his waist. She died knowing she was found. She whispered. She died knowing she was loved. That is everything. Jerry nodded. But his grief wasn't ready to be comforted. Not yet. That night, the house was too quiet. Jerry sat alone in the living room, holding her framed photo. His fingers traced the frame like it might bring her back. "Mama," he said softly, "I didn't find you early, but I gave you the best I could. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." A quiet shuffle. Johnson entered and sat beside him without a word. "You gave her everything she ever wanted," Johnson said. "Peace, family, laughter, grandchildren. Even in death, she was not alone." Jerry stared at the photo. "I just wish she stayed longer." Johnson nodded. "Me too. Every day, I feel her absence. Sometimes I talk to her picture. Sometimes I ask, why didn't you tell me you were going? But I think she's at peace now." Jerry leaned back, eyes swollen. His voice was low. "How do you survive this kind of pain?" "You don't," Johnson replied. "You carry it. And then one day, it becomes soft, like a memory instead of a wound." The days that followed were strange. The house felt hollow. No more soft singing from the kitchen. No more stories under the tree. No more quiet prayers echoing through the hallway at 4 a.m. The space she filled was too large to replace. But Amara stepped forward, not with loud declarations, but with quiet actions. Every evening, she called the twins to the garden. They sat under the moonlight, just like Mama Hannah used to do. And she told stories. Not fairy tales, but real ones. Stories about bravery, about forgiveness, about the woman who raised them all. She told them about Mama Hannah's stubborn love, about the way she believed in peace more than pride, about how kindness was not weakness, but strength in disguise. The twins listened. Sometimes they smiled. Sometimes they cried. But always they healed. And slowly, like breath returning after a long cry, the house began to breathe again. A new rhythm. A softer one. One without her, but still full of her. Because even gone, Madame Hannah hadn't truly left. Her voice lived in Amara's stories. Her courage lived in the twins' hearts. Her strength, somehow, kept them all standing. And her kindness kept the family together. The grief was still fresh, but life didn't wait. The house kept moving. The restaurant reopened. The world outside didn't pause, even if Jerry wished it would. Amara continued her quiet rituals. Evening stories in the garden, humming softly while shelling beans, folding Mama Hannah's wrapper with reverence, like it might still hold her scent. Jessica, on the other hand, stayed busy. Too busy. Cooking for everyone. Cleaning things that didn't need cleaning. Folding clothes no one wore. She didn't talk about it, but sometimes Jerry would find her in their bedroom, holding a pillow and crying into it like the sorrow might leak out unnoticed. And the twins, they tried to smile. But the silence left behind by the woman who once filled every corner of their childhood lingered like dust in sunlight. Then, unexpectedly, something arrived. A letter. Jerry found it one afternoon, tucked beneath a stack of mail. His name scribbled on the front. The handwriting was strange, shaky, uneven, but familiar in a haunting way. Inside was one sentence. "Forgive me. I am sorry. Caleb." Jerry stared at the note for a long time. He didn't speak. He didn't move. His hand gripped the paper so tightly it wrinkled like old skin. Jessica entered the room minutes later. "Jerry." He didn't look up. He wrote again. Her face paled. "Caleb." Jerry nodded slowly. "That makes 10 letters. In 2 years." Jessica sat down beside him. "Are you going to reply?" "I don't know what to say." That was true. Jerry had no hatred left in him, but he also had no words. Caleb, the man who destroyed his family once, was sitting in a prison somewhere, remembering his crimes, asking for peace, asking for something Jerry had no idea how to give. That night, after everyone went to bed, Jerry sat at his desk and stared at a blank page. Then, slowly he wrote, "I forgive you. I do not hate you. Find peace with your maker." He folded the paper, sealed it, and exhaled like he'd just put something heavy down. Miles away, in a prison cell, Caleb read the letter and wept. Not loud, not performative, just a slow, uncontrollable release. Because forgiveness was the one thing he never believed he deserved. And now that he had it, it broke him completely. But peace rarely lasted long. Kimberly, Caleb's sister, never stopped. The threats, the messages, the blame. She swore vengeance for her brother's downfall, even after the courts had spoken. Until one day, the police called. Jessica answered. "Ma'am, we have Kimberly in custody." Jessica didn't blink. "What happened?" "She came to our station crying," the officer said. "She says she's a widow. She says she has no one." Jessica relayed everything to Jerry, who remained silent for a while. Then he got in a car. At the station, Kimberly looked like a shadow of herself. Her hair was messy, her voice cracked, her hands shook. "I didn't mean to cause harm," she whispered. "I was angry. I only have my children. Please, I didn't know what I was doing." Jerry stood still. He remembered his mother's voice, her belief in mercy, in second chances, in peace over pride. He took a breath. "I forgive you," he said quietly. "Go home. Take care of your children. Don't ever threaten anyone again." She collapsed to the ground, sobbing. "Thank you. God bless you." Jerry turned and walked away. Not with pride, but with peace. Kindness had always been the seed, and he would not let it rot in the soil. Under Amara and Johnson's leadership, Kindness Restaurant grew into something bigger than anyone expected. New branches opened in Port Harcourt, then Calabar, then Benin. They had staff, partnerships, uniforms, a proper headquarters. It was no longer just a restaurant. It was a legacy. People came from across Nigeria just to say they had eaten at Kindness. And when they did, they always asked one question. What's the story behind the name? And someone always answered. It started with a meal, a widow, a child, and a woman who believed in love more than revenge. The twins turned 18. Two beautiful girls with sharp minds and gentle hearts. They got into university, studied software engineering, coded, designed, built, competed, won. And at 21, they graduated top of their class. Not just students, stars. Their parents couldn't stop taking pictures. Jerry cried. Jessica nearly fainted from pride. Amara wept openly. Johnson clapped like a man, tried to beat drums with his hands. When the twins walked into the graduation hall in their gowns, the whole family stood to clap. "We made you proud," Mimi said. "We made Grandma proud," Mara added. They joined Jerry's tech company not long after. And what they built changed everything. Within 2 years, profits tripled. The company's security systems were airtight. Their software went viral. Their designs won awards. People whispered everywhere. These girls are geniuses. They think like one mind. They're the future. And they were. At 25, fate walked in again, this time in Love's clothing. Mimi met Henry, a cybersecurity expert. Calm, brilliant, gentle. Mara met Benson, a banking executive. Responsible, confident, thoughtful. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was right. Months passed. Laughter returned. And then came the weddings. It was the kind of wedding that made people weep without knowing why. Mimi and Mara stood side by side in stunning white gowns. Jerry could barely look without his chest aching. Jessica whispered prayers between breaths. But it was Amara who cried the most. She stood behind the girls at the aisle, clutching their hands, tears streaming down her face. "I shouldn't be the one doing this," she whispered. "It should be Mama Hannah." Jerry placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "She is here," he said. "She's walking with you." And Amara nodded. Tears and all, she walked the girls down the aisle. 2 daughters, 1 heart, many memories. Then time passed again. 1 year, 2, then 5. No children. Doctors said nothing was wrong. People whispered. Relatives gossiped. But Jerry and Jessica stood firm. So did Johnson and Amara. Still, the pain found ways in. Mimi cried in Henry's arms some nights. Mara cried quietly while Benson held her hand. They comforted each other. They said soon, like a prayer. Then, one quiet morning, everything changed. Both twins were pregnant. In the same month. The house exploded with joy. Neighbors danced. Friend screamed. Johnson fell to his knees and gave thanks. 9 months later, Mimi gave birth to a baby boy. They named him Andrew. 4 days later, Mara gave birth to another baby boy. They named him Anderson. Amara held them both in her arms and wept like the sky had opened. Jessica knelt and sobbed. Jerry whispered through trembling lips. Kindness has returned again. Because a single act of kindness, years ago, had rippled through generations. And in those tiny cries, in those little hands, it echoed once more. That night, the mansion was full of soft sounds, cooing, footsteps, hushed laughter, lullabies. In a quiet living room, Amara sat with Andrew in one arm, Anderson in the other. She rocked them gently, her heart both heavy and overflowing. My great-grandchildren, she whispered. 2 miracles, 2 blessings. She looked down at them, kissed their heads, and smiled. Your grandmother would have danced all over this house. A tear slipped down her cheek. You came when we thought it was the end. You reminded us life always continues. Behind her, Johnson entered the room. He cleaned his glasses slowly, then looked at her. You look like her, he said. Amara blinked. Like who? Mama Hannah, he said softly. The way you hold them, the way you speak. It's her. Amara smiled gently. She's here, she whispered. In every kindness, in every child, in every seed she planted. Johnson sat beside her and touched one tiny foot. She will be proud of you, Amara. No one can replace her, she said. I only borrowed her strength. And you borrowed it well, Johnson whispered. Upstairs, Mimi and Mara lay in their beds, exhausted but glowing. Their husbands stood by the window, whispering about moonlight and diapers. Mimi turned her head toward her sister. Do you remember the garden? Mara smiled. Every night. Do you remember her stories? I remember everything. She said kindness is a seed that grows into a forest. She said kindness remembers longer than wickedness. They reached for each other's hands. We live that truth, Mimi said. Mara squeezed gently. We did. Then silence. Then sleep. 2 sisters. 2 mothers. 2 seeds from the same tree. And the roots were deep. The mansion breathed peace. Morning light kissed the balcony. The babies cooed in their cribs. Jessica stirred jollof rice in the kitchen, humming softly, her rhythm steady. Jerry set the table with Henry and Benson. They joked, laughed about diaper duty and sleepless nights. Amara and Johnson played with Andrew and Anderson on the rug, making soft animal sounds and clapping at each baby giggle. It looked like heaven, but the twins walked in quietly, exhaustion clinging to them like perfume. Mommy, Mimi called gently, dropping her bag at the door. Something smells heavenly. Jessica turned, smiling proudly. Sit down. Eat. You 2 look like you haven't slept. We haven't, Mara admitted, attempting a soft laugh. Work stress? Jerry asked, narrowing his eyes slightly. The twins exchanged a glance. Just a flicker, but it was enough. Jessica caught it instantly. Girls, she asked, voice soft, is everything okay? Mimi nodded too quickly. We're fine. Just handling a few system updates, Mara added. Her voice lacked confidence. Jerry said nothing, but he knew that look. The same one he wore years ago when danger loomed, and he didn't want the people he loved to feel the weight. Amara served the food. Today is for eating and resting, she declared. Whatever's troubling you can wait. You have a home here, and you're not alone. Jessica touched their hands. Always remember that. The twins smiled, but inside, a quiet dread stirred. That night, after the house went silent and the babies were asleep, the sisters rose again. Henry stirred when Mimi tiptoed toward the door. Where are you going? He asked, voice groggy. Just to sort something quickly, she said. Want me to come? She kissed his forehead. No. Sleep. Across the hallway, Benson opened his eyes to see Mara slipping her laptop into her bag. It's past midnight, he said. I just need to check something. I won't be long. Is it about work? You 2 have been acting strange. Mara hesitated. Not yet, she whispered. But it might be. He sat up, concerned. Want me to come? She shook her head. It's technical. She kissed him and left. Minutes later, the twins met in the company's cybersecurity room. The lights were low. The blue glow of their screens reflected on their tired faces. Mimi locked the door. Mara activated blind firewall mode. They had no choice. They'd been watching for a week. Quietly. Carefully. And every night, the attacks grew more refined. Another ping. Another attempt. Mimi frowned. There it is again. Mara leaned closer. Fourth one this week. They're testing us, Mimi whispered. Timing. Reaction speed. Patch strength. This isn't some teenager with a VPN. No, Mimi agreed. This is surgical. Their eyes met. They weren't just protecting company data anymore. Something darker lurked beneath the code. Mara typed rapidly. Let's trace the source. It wasn't easy. The signals bounced across countries, cloaked under commercial IPs, hidden in fragmented packets. But after hours of sifting, a pattern began to emerge. Then, a signature, buried deep inside the intrusion string. Encrypted, faint but unmistakable. Mara's breath caught. Mimi, look. Mimi zoomed in. Her hands began to shake. It was a symbol, one she had only ever seen in stories. A coiled snake. The same symbol tied to their grandmother's fear. The same one their father thought he had buried forever. The Vipers, Mimi whispered. But Caleb is in prison, Mara said, her voice barely audible. Mimi shook her head. Someone else picked up the trail. They stared at each other. Do we tell Daddy? Mimi asked. Mara's eyes were hard. Not yet. Not until we're sure. If he knows now. He'll panic, Mimi finished. He'll go back into war mode. What do? We investigate. Quietly. Mimi looked down. Her voice cracked. I'm scared. Mara reached across and took her hand. So am I. But we survived before. We will again. Across the city, in a small room lit only by a laptop screen, a man leaned back in his chair and smiled. On his monitor, dozens of surveillance photos. Mimi, Mara, Jerry, Jessica, the babies. He clicked on Mimi's image. The thinker, then Mara's. The fighter. He whispered, You'll bring your father to me, without even knowing. He took a sip from a glass. Behind him, a file sat open. Operation Serpent Seed. The Vipers weren't dead. They had simply evolved. The attacks intensified. One evening, as they reviewed logs, Mimi whispered, He's matching us. Blow for blow. Mara's hands stilled on the keyboard. He's watching us. We're not just defending anymore. Mara closed her eyes. We need to set a trap. Mimi blinked. A trap. For him. That's dangerous. That's necessary. They worked all night. A perfect digital snare, camouflaged data, false vulnerabilities, embedded location trackers. It looked like gold to an attacker. They waited. 1 minute. 2. 5. Nothing. Mara sighed. Maybe he's smarter. Then beep. Mimi gasped. He took it. The trap had been sprung. They leaned in. Then the screen flickered. A message appeared. Hello, little Vipers. The words burned. Mimi froze. Mara's breath hitched. Then another line appeared. You are not hunting me. I am hunting you. And suddenly, the lights in the office cut out. Darkness swallowed them. Mimi grabbed Mara's hand. Mara, I know, Mara whispered. Her voice shook. But they weren't alone anymore. Someone was watching, and they were already inside. Back at the mansion, Jessica entered their room to find the twins pretending to sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed. You both look exhausted. Mimi opened her eyes. We're okay, Mom. You sure? They nodded. Jessica kissed their foreheads. You know you can tell us anything, right? They nodded again, but didn't speak. Jessica watched them for a moment, then stood and left, the door clicking shut behind her. Silence. Then Mimi whispered, We can't hide this forever. I know, Mara said. But not yet. They sat up in bed, knees to their chests. Wrapped in silence. Wrapped in fear. Across the city, the hacker reviewed traffic footage, zoomed into the grainy security cameras surrounding the Inwakama mansion. He clicked a button. A voice message played. Phase 2 begins in 3 days. He smiled faintly. The father still had no idea. On his screen, a message blinked in bold red text. Operation Serpent Seed activated. The storm came hard that night. Wind rattled the windows. Rain pounded the rooftop. Thunder cracked the sky, open like a warning. But inside the mansion, all was still, except for Mimi and Mara. They sat together on the edge of Mimi's bed, wrapped in blankets, breathing fast despite the warmth of the room. Neither could sleep. Not after the message. Hello, little vipers. You are not hunting me. I am hunting you. Mimi rubbed her hands together. Do you think he knows who we are? Mara didn't answer right away. Then softly, yes. He's watching us. This isn't random. This is personal. Mimi looked toward the window, where flashes of lightning lit the night like camera bursts. He knows our family. He knows Daddy. He knows our weakness. Mimi swallowed. Then a knock. They jumped. Mimi, Mara. It was Jessica. Relief, sharp and immediate. Jessica stepped into the room, wrapping her arms around herself. Why are your lights still on? Mimi forced a smile. We couldn't sleep. Jessica walked over and sat on the bed, brushing their hair like she used to when they were 5. You're working too hard. Mara nodded. We'll rest soon. Jessica kissed their foreheads. Don't forget, whatever happens, you have us. No storm touches you alone. She turned off the light and left. The door clicked shut. The twins sat in silence, the warmth of their mother's words still lingering, and the guilt that came with it. Mimi turned slowly. Maybe we should tell her. Mara clenched her fists. Not yet. Across town, inside a windowless office, the hacker clicked through tabs of surveillance feeds. Street cams, traffic lights, exterior cameras. Then he paused on one clip. The mansion. He zoomed in, grainy but clear. Mimi on the balcony, her hair tied, typing on a laptop. Mara walking behind her, phone in hand. Clever girls, he murmured. Then he clicked over to a new folder. A voice message played. We begin phase 2 in 3 days. The hacker smiled faintly. The father still doesn't know. Another screen blinked. Operation Serpent Seed, active. The next morning, the storm had passed. The mansion was drenched but calm. Jerry walked barefoot into the garden, a steaming cup of tea in hand. He loved the stillness of mornings, before the phones, the meetings, the world. He sat under the gazebo, closed his eyes, and breathed in. But something pricked at his chest. An old, unwelcome instinct. Amara joined him minutes later, shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Thinking about Mama? Jerry nodded slowly. She'd love this spot, Amara said. Peace suits you. I never thought I'd have peace, Jerry said. Amara looked out across the garden. None of us did. But kindness builds homes storms can't destroy. He smiled faintly, then asked suddenly, were the twins still sleeping? I think. At this hour? They worked late yesterday. Maybe they're tired. Jerry nodded. Slowly, but unease settled in his stomach like a stone. Jessica had said it too. They're hiding something. He stood. I need to talk to my daughters. At the office, Mimi and Mara were already awake, already working. They stared at a new log entry. The code scrolled like waves. It's getting bolder, Mimi whispered. He left another message, Mara added. Mimi zoomed in. It was buried in the code, almost poetic in its simplicity. Time's up soon. Mara's voice turned to steel. He's taunting us. Mimi nodded, her heart sinking. And he's close. Too close. A notification popped. Signal breach detected. Source, Port Harcourt. Physical device. Mimi sat up. It's local. Location. Mimi typed fast. Her eyes widened. New mile 3. Mara's breath caught. That's barely a few kilometers away. They looked at each other. We need to go, Mara said. Now. It might be our only chance. But what if it's a trap? It probably is, Mara said. But we have to see. The market at mile 3 was a mess of honking, shouting, and roasted corn. Mimi parked near a newsstand. The signal's coming from that direction, she said, pointing to a run-down electronics corridor. They walked quickly, eyes scanning every face. Then a small shop. Old phones. Cracked monitors. A dusty sign that barely read at Quincy Gadgets. Inside it was quiet. Empty. But behind a stack of radio parts, something blinked. Mimi pointed. That's a signal relay. He's bouncing the attacks from here. Mara moved forward. Then a voice. Step away from that. They turned. A tall man in a black hoodie stood at the door. Calm. Cold. Mimi's voice trembled. Who are you? He smiled faintly. Someone who's been expecting you. Mara took a step forward. What do you want? Your father. Mimi froze. Why? Because he stole something from us. He looked at her. And you're the bait. Mara clenched her fists. We're not afraid of you. Oh, but you should be, the man said softly. You carry his bloodline. He destroyed ours. Now, I'll destroy his through you. Then he dropped something to the ground. Flash bomb. A sharp burst of light. A loud crack. When their vision cleared, he was gone. Mimi grabbed the device. Mara pulled her arm. Let's move. They sprinted to the car, adrenaline racing. Inside, silence. Then Mimi whispered, he knows us. He knows the past. Mara's voice was barely a breath. We can't hide this anymore. At the mansion, Jerry stepped out of his room just as the twins came in, breathless, pale, shaking. Jessica ran down the stairs. What happened? Mimi burst into tears. Daddy, we're sorry. We didn't want to worry you. Jerry took her shoulders gently. Talk to me. Mara took a breath. Someone is attacking the company. Not for money. Not for data. For us. Jessica covered her mouth. Oh my God. The symbol. The messages, Mimi added. Mara looked him in the eyes. Daddy, the Vipers are back. Amara froze. Johnson's face turned to stone. Jerry's expression shifted. That cold, sharp focus he hadn't worn in years returned to his eyes. Tell me everything. They did. The breaches. The symbol. The Mile 3 shop. The man. His words. When they finished, Jerry's hands were shaking. Not from fear, but fury. Jessica whispered, why won't they leave us alone? Jerry stood, slowly. Because evil doesn't sleep, and the past always sends its children. Johnson asked, what do we do? Jerry looked around, at his family, his wife, his daughters, his sons-in-law, his grandchildren, and whispered, we end this, once and for all. The house was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of decision. The kind that settles in before a storm hits. Jerry stood in the center of the living room, hand behind his back, eyes on the floor, shoulders stiff. Jessica sat beside him, her hand shaking on his arm. Amara and Johnson stood close, watching him, like they'd seen this man once before, many years ago, when he walked into a den of devils and pulled his daughters from fire. Mimi and Mara sat on the sofa, hands intertwined, eyes red. Henry and Benson stood behind them, quiet, alert. Everyone knew. This wasn't just about firewalls anymore, or digital breaches. This was personal. The Vipers were back. And this time, they weren't hiding. Finally, Jerry exhaled. Everyone sit. The room obeyed. He began to pace slowly. For 20 years, I lived believing my family was gone. Then, I lived trying to protect the peace I found. He paused. But the past, it never forgets. Jessica looked up. Why now? Jerry sat down beside her. His voice dropped. When Kayla was arrested, the authorities told me something I never shared. Everyone leaned in. Caleb wasn't the head of the Vipers. He was the face. The real leader vanished, slipped through the cracks. And now he's resurfaced. Mimi gasped. Mara clenched her jaw. So this is organized. Yes, Jerry nodded. This isn't revenge. This is strategy. Johnson's voice hardened, and the man the girls saw connected. Almost certainly. Amara asked softly, Jerry, are we in danger? He looked at each of them. Slowly, carefully. There will always be danger. But this time, we are smarter. We are ready. He turned to the twins. I need to see everything. They opened their laptops. Code filled the room with blue light. Jerry leaned over, scanning the patterns. Then his eyes stopped. His voice dropped. This. I know this code. Jessica stepped closer. You recognize it? He didn't answer immediately. Just stared. Yes, he whispered. This is Suddy's work. Suddy. He was a boy I knew when I was 15. Genius. Dangerous. Caleb respected him. He disappeared before the fall. Mara's face went pale. He told us we were bait. Jerry nodded slowly. That's exactly how Suddy works. He doesn't just fight. He unravels. Jessica touched his arm. What do we do? He took a deep breath. We bring him into the light. For the next 3 weeks, the house changed. No panic. No sirens. Just movement. Silent. Surgical. Mimi and Mara rebuilt the company's defenses from the ground up. Henry added layers, code traps, trace bots, firewall mirrors. Benson dug through financial trails, watching for accounts linked to old Viper networks. Jessica, Amara, and Johnson became the pillars of calm, keeping the babies safe, the home warm, the energy grounded. They worked, ate, prayed, together, until one night. 1:13 a.m. Ping. Mimi sat up straight. He's in. Mara rushed over. Where? Mimi pointed. He took the bait. Henry and Benson were already there. Jerry appeared in the doorway. Jessica behind him. Johnson and Amara close behind. They gathered around the screen. A red dot blinked. Jerry's chest tightened. Location. Mara whispered. Henry zoomed in. Coordinates sharpened. Jessica gasped. Amara covered her mouth. Johnson whispered, "Oh my God." The location was clear. The old Lagos warehouse, where Jerry had once been taken, where he'd been broken and rebuilt. Mimi stared. He wants you to return to the beginning. Jessica held Jerry's hand. Don't go. Jerry looked at her. I'm not going to fight. I'm going to finish this. Henry stepped forward. We'll go with you. Mara stood. We're all coming. Jerry shook his head. No. He wants me. Only me. Mimi burst into tears. Daddy, don't. Jerry pulled her close. I survived that place once. I will again. And when I return, this ends. The warehouse was dark. Echoes of past screams lived in the walls. Jerry stepped forward slowly, each step a memory, each breath a reckoning. Then, clapping, a man emerged. Tall, slim, hood pulled low. Suddy, Jerry said. The man smiled. You still recognize me. You know, friend of mine. Ah, Suddy chuckled. But your past? That belongs to me. Jerry didn't flinch. You're done. I didn't come to fight, Suddy said. Jerry paused. Then why? To finish our story. Suddy lowered his hood. His face was older, weary, defeated. You destroyed the Vipers. But I needed you to see that the past still breathes. Jerry studied him. You want revenge? No, Suddy whispered. I want to let go. Jerry blinked. Suddy stepped forward. I've lost everything. Caleb's gone. The others vanished. I'm alone. I just needed you to look at me, so I wouldn't disappear completely. His eyes were glassy. Monsters get old too. Why torment my daughters? Suddy looked down. Because I wanted your attention. But now, I understand. He raised his hands. Turn me in. Jerry stiffened. What? I'm done. I have no life. No family. You built something beautiful. And I hated you for it. He took a deep breath. But now I understand. Kindness saved you. Jerry pulled out his phone. Called the police. Suddy smiled faintly. For the first time, I feel free. When the police arrived, he surrendered peacefully. Jerry watched the van drive away. He exhaled. A weight lifted. He looked up at the sky. Mama, he whispered. It's over. The mansion erupted when he returned. Jessica ran into his arms. You came back. I promised. Mimi and Mara held him tightly, sobbing. Henry, Benson, Johnson, Amara, each embraced him. Jessica kissed his forehead. No more Vipers? No more. Mimi took his hand. We're safe. Yes, he whispered. You are. Amara smiled through tears. Kindness wins again. Johnson nodded. And peace returns. Jessica leaned against Jerry. Let's go inside. Our family is whole again. Weeks later, the garden glowed. Music played. Laughter echoed. It was Jerry and Jessica's 25th wedding anniversary. Mimi stood beside Henry, holding little Andrew. Mara carried Anderson in her arms. Amara and Johnson beamed in matching clothes. The twins had become senior engineers, respected across Africa. The restaurant had grown into a national brand. Jerry had written a book about survival, about kindness. It became a bestseller. Life was full. As a photographer called for a family picture, Jessica whispered, "We made it, Jerry." Jerry wrapped an arm around her. Yes, he said, because kindness never fails. The camera flashed. A moment frozen forever. A family healed. Whole. Safe. A legacy built. Not from wealth or power, but from a meal shared once in love. Kindness had lived. Kindness had lasted. Kindness had won.